Pregnant wife walks in on her millionaire proposing to his mistress' shocking ending. They say every marriage has its secrets, but what if the biggest secret shatters your heart while you're carrying new life within you? Meet Serafina Lancaster, a loving wife, soon-to-be mother, and pillar of elegance. Her husband, Grant Lancaster, is a suave millionaire with a polished public image. On the surface, they seem like the couple who has it all, until Serafina stumbles upon a glittering engagement ring meant for another woman. What follows is a harrowing journey of lies, betrayals, and secrets that run far deeper than she ever imagined. Brace yourself for a tale where love, revenge, and karma collide in the most shocking way. Serafina Lancaster woke to a sunrise that bathed her luxurious bedroom in gilded light. Reclining in bed, she let her hand drift across her abdomen, feeling the gentle flutter of the life growing inside her. Even half awake, she smiled at the thought she was 20 weeks pregnant, and in just a few months, she and Grant would be parents. To her, it felt like a fairy tale culminating in the ultimate blessing. From an outsider's perspective, Serafina and Grant defined #couple goals. He was the charismatic mastermind behind Lancaster Capital, regularly featured in financial publications like Bloomberg Businessweek for his strategic acquisitions. Serafina was often on the social pages for chairing charity galas and hospital fundraisers. Their home, a modern penthouse overlooking the glistening New York skyline, dazzled the city's elite. At social functions, they arrived arm in arm, projecting affection and unity that left their peers both admiring and envious. Yet beneath the sheen of perfection, subtle cracks existed. In recent months, Serafina had noticed Grant's late-night work habits becoming more frequent and more clandestine. He'd drift to his home office after dinner and lock the door behind him. Serafina, who believed wholeheartedly in Grant's dedication, rarely questioned him. She ascribed his growing secrecy to the pressure of running a multi-million-dollar enterprise and establishing a financial legacy. After all, she was sure that part of his drive came from wanting to ensure the baby's future. Still, a faint stirring of unease had begun to blossom in her heart. She couldn't identify its source, just an undefined worry that tugged at her intuition. Perhaps it was the way Grant's phone seemed to vibrate more often after midnight, or how he would abruptly silence calls when Serafina entered the room, offering a vague explanation about business emergencies. The more she observed, the more she felt something was off. But every time she mustered the courage to ask, she found herself swallowing the question. She didn't want to appear mistrustful or irrational, especially with her hormones in flux during pregnancy. This morning, however, her anxiety was momentarily overshadowed by excitement. Today marked the day of the Lancaster Children's Hospital benefit, an event she had poured her heart into organizing. It would be held at the iconic Plaza Hotel, a real-life fairy tale venue that had hosted presidents, movie stars, and society royalty. In a few hours, Serafina would be enveloped by the hustle of preparations, finalizing decorations, checking guest lists, ensuring the silent auction ran smoothly. Most of all, she was looking forward to seeing Grant there, proud by her side, supporting a cause so close to her heart. With a hopeful spark in her eyes, she rose from the bed, determined to silence her doubts. She told herself that the ache of uncertainty was a mere byproduct of stress and pregnancy. Today would be a moment of triumph, an opportunity to remember why she and Grant were so perfect together. Little did she know, the threads holding her world together were already fraying at the seams. Walking through the glitzy lobby of the Plaza Hotel, Serafina felt the electricity of the night buzzing all around her. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, reflecting off marble floors and mirrored walls. Esteemed guests and donors trickled in, men in sleek tuxedos, women in evening gowns that whispered of wealth and refinement. Everyone greeted her warmly, praising her organizing skills for the Lancaster Children's Hospital benefit. Serafina politely nodded, offering gracious smiles, her heart fluttering with a mix of nerves and exhilaration. But one person was conspicuously absent, Grant. Usually, he arrived early to high-profile events, keen to charm potential investors and appease the press. Tonight, though, his seat at the VIP table remained empty. Serafina tried calling him twice, but got no answer, only curt text replies about running behind. Her instincts prickled. She checked the time. The program was about to start. Despite her mounting anxiety, she took a deep breath, determined not to let Grant's absence overshadow the charitable cause. She stepped onto the small stage set up in the grand ballroom to deliver her welcome remarks. The hush that fell over the crowd reflected the respect she had earned through her philanthropic passion. She spoke about the importance of supporting pediatric care, how the funds raised would transform the hospital's facilities, and how they planned to establish a research unit for rare childhood diseases. Her speech concluded to hearty applause, yet her stomach clenched in disappointment at the single unoccupied chair in the front row. Where was Grant? As she left the stage, a gentle touch on her shoulder made her turn around. It was her close friend, Charlotte Hayworth, a society columnist for a prominent newspaper. Charlotte's frown of concern mirrored Serafina's own emotions. "Grant didn't make it?" Charlotte asked quietly. Serafina forced a smile. "He's running late business, you know." Charlotte's eyes flickered with compassion. Then she leaned in, lowering her voice. "Serafina, I want you to hear it from me before you read it anywhere else. There are rumors that Grant's been spotted around town with someone, a woman, younger, always in these hush-hush rendezvous." The words fell like stones in Serafina's gut. She swallowed hard, trying to maintain her composure. Whispers of an affair. It sounded ludicrous. Yet Charlotte's expression was genuine, and she wouldn't lie about something so serious. "I'm only telling you because you're my friend," Charlotte continued. "I don't want you blindsided. Are you okay?" Forcing a steady breath, Serafina managed a soft reply. "I appreciate your concern, but it's probably some business contact or a reporter. Grant would never cheat. Not now, especially with the baby on the way." Charlotte gave a terse nod, not entirely convinced. She squeezed Serafina's hand before moving on, leaving Serafina to a torrent of conflicting emotions. She glanced down at her growing belly, feeling the baby's slight movements. Could Grant be harboring such a betrayal? She tried to push the thought away, focusing instead on greeting guests. But the seed of doubt had been planted, and it would continue to grow until it demanded answers she might not be prepared to face. When Grant finally arrived at the Plaza Hotel, the benefit was nearing its end. Most of the big donors had already made their appearances. The silent auction winners had been announced, and the dessert course was being served. Serafina saw him the moment he swept into the ballroom, exuding confidence in his tailored suit. Yet he looked oddly disheveled, his collar askew, a light sheen of sweat on his forehead. She watched him pause to greet a board member from Lancaster Capital, forcing a charismatic laugh, then scanning the crowd. When his gaze finally landed on her, he offered a polished smile, as though everything was perfectly normal. A wave of hurt and anger surged within her. She had stayed up countless nights planning this event, banking on his moral and financial support, and he'd sauntered in at the 11th hour. Grant breezed over, capturing her hand and leaning in for a quick kiss on the cheek. "Sarah, sorry I'm late," he murmured, guiding her to a less crowded corner. "The market in Hong Kong took a dive at the last minute, and I had to handle urgent calls." His explanation was smooth, rehearsed even, but Serafina's mind flashed back to Charlotte's warning. She stared at him, trying to detect any trace of dishonesty. His hair was slightly disheveled, and the faint scent of perfume, definitely not her own, clung to his jacket. Her chest constricted, but she pushed the rising panic aside. This wasn't the place for a confrontation. "It would have meant a lot to have you here earlier," she replied calmly, though her voice trembled. "These donors expect to see the name Lancaster present in more than just a logo." Grant gave a nonchalant shrug. "We raised a significant amount, right? That's what's important." Any bystander might have thought nothing was amiss, but the emotional distance between them was palpable. Serafina noticed how Grant avoided meeting her eyes for too long. He kept scanning the room as if searching for someone or hoping not to be seen. It made Serafina's heart sink further. Determined to keep the night from spiraling, Serafina led him toward a cluster of lingering guests. Despite her internal turmoil, she donned a bright, gracious smile, thanking everyone for attending. A flush of relief washed over her when they praised her speech and the event's organization. At least from the outside, the fundraiser was a smashing success. Yet, as they said their goodbyes and finally left the plaza, Serafina could not shake the unease gnawing at her. Every nerve in her body told her something was dreadfully wrong. Grant's late arrival was more than just a scheduling conflict. It carried an ominous undertone. She found herself unable to celebrate her triumph, her mind spinning with questions. She wasn't sure she wanted answered. Over the following weeks, Serafina's routine was punctuated by new, unsettling observations. Grant's absences became more frequent, each explained by some urgent business development or sudden investor crisis. He would often leave the penthouse at odd hours, phone clutched in his hand as though tethered to some private secret. When she questioned him, he'd offer a hurried excuse, then disappear, leaving Serafina alone with her growing belly and growing anxieties. Late one evening, she sat in their opulent living room, scrolling aimlessly through social media. Memories of the hospital benefit flicked through her mind. Charlotte's words haunted her. Could it be that Grant truly had another woman in his life? She tried to recall the perfume she'd caught on his jacket and realized she recognized the floral notes of a brand she never wore, Marc Jacobs Daisy. It was popular, but it certainly wasn't hers. Serafina debated whether to approach Charlotte again for more details. Was it wise to chase rumors, especially in her delicate condition? She told herself to remain rational, but the pit in her stomach refused to subside. Something was off. Her husband had changed, and she had no idea why. At midnight, Grant still hadn't returned. Serafina ventured into his home office, searching for a flash drive he'd mentioned, containing baby name ideas, a sweet gesture from him weeks ago. While rifling through drawers, she stumbled upon a small, black velvet box hidden under a stack of file folders. Her heart thumped wildly as she opened it, expecting perhaps a gift for her or a family heirloom. Instead, she found a stunning diamond ring emerald cut, flanked by smaller stones, breathtaking in its brilliance. Her first naive thought was that it must be an anniversary present. But they'd already passed their anniversary last month, and the timing didn't match. A chill skittered up her spine. Could this be for someone else? Her eyes teared up at the very notion, but she couldn't ignore the tide of dread washing over her. She hurriedly replaced the box, her hands trembling. 1,000 unanswered questions whirled in her mind. The ring was obviously brand new, not something from a family heirloom. If it were meant for her, why hide it in the office? Why not surprise her with it on their anniversary or when they learned they were expecting? Unable to quell her anxiety, she left the office, heart pounding so loudly it seemed to echo in the silent penthouse. For the remainder of the night, she lay awake in bed, her hands protectively over her belly. grappling with a dreaded certainty. Something was deeply wrong, and the diamond ring was a clue she couldn't bury. The following morning, Serafina awoke unrested, eyes puffy from a sleepless night of worrying. After a feeble attempt at breakfast toast and ginger tea, she found herself craving the support of a friend. The only person she trusted with such a delicate matter was Charlotte, who had never steered her wrong. Her friend had called weeks ago with those ominous rumors. Maybe she knew more than she'd initially disclosed. Serafina dialed Charlotte's number with trembling fingers. Charlotte picked up on the second ring. "Serafina, how are you? You sound tense." Sighing, Serafina replied, "I need to talk to you. Are you free for coffee?" An hour later, they met at a cozy cafe on the Upper East Side, far from the typical hot spots frequented by gossip columnists. Charlotte arrived in a stylish trench coat, her worried expression only intensifying when she saw Serafina's pale face. They slid into a booth by the window, and Serafina wasted no time. She recounted Grant's mysterious absences, the perfume on his jacket, and most disturbingly, the diamond ring stashed away in his office. As she spoke, her voice grew shakier, tears threatening to spill. Charlotte listened intently, nodding in empathy. When Serafina finished, Charlotte gently placed a hand on hers. "I'm so sorry you're going through this. Look, I've been hearing rumors. In the social circuit, Grant's been seen with a woman named Dahlia Moretti. She's a rising star in the art world. People saw them dining together at Philippe Chow, traveling in the same car to gallery openings. The speculation is that it's more than business." Serafina felt a sharp pang in her chest. Hearing the other woman's name made it all too real. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" she whispered, tears threatening to fall. Charlotte's eyes brimmed with sympathy. "I wasn't sure, and I didn't want to add stress to your pregnancy. But after you mentioned the ring, it might be related." The ring could be for her, Serafina. A hush settled over them. Serafina clutched the rim of her teacup, desperately trying to maintain composure. The weight of this revelation felt suffocating. She pictured Grant kneeling before someone else, sliding that diamond onto Dahlia's finger, a horrifying thought, especially given that Serafina was carrying his child. "I can't jump to conclusions, but I can't ignore this either," Serafina said, her voice trembling. "What should I do?" Charlotte squeezed her hand. "Be careful. Confront him if you must, but make sure you're safe physically, emotionally, financially. Men like Grant have powerful resources, and you need to protect yourself. I'm here if you need anything." Tears finally broke free, trailing down Serafina's cheeks. She dabbed them away, nodded in gratitude, and stared out the window at the busy street. She had glimpsed a version of her future she never imagined one, where she faced betrayal, heartbreak, and uncertainty, all while carrying a child she loved beyond words. Yet she silently vowed to uncover the truth, no matter how painful. Instead of confronting Grant outright, Serafina decided on a more discreet path. She needed definitive proof, no more rumors, no half-truths. The ring in the office, the perfume, and the gossip about Dahlia Moretti pointed to one damning reality, but she couldn't allow herself to spiral into despair without absolute certainty. So she embarked on a subtle investigation of her own. Under the guise of reordering some furnishings for their penthouse, Serafina convinced one of Grant's personal assistants, a timid but kind woman named Felicia, to share his schedule. Felicia, sympathetic to Serafina's pregnancy, had no reason to suspect anything amiss. She gave Serafina a copy of the monthly calendar, peppered with corporate meetings, flights to London for investor talks, and dinners that sounded suspiciously personal. Serafina noticed a recurrent name in Grant's schedule, DM, Incorporated meeting popping up twice a week. A quick online search for DM Incorporated revealed it as Dahlia Moretti's fledgling art consultancy. Serafina's stomach clenched. Why so many meetings with an art consultant? Her mind flashed to Charlotte's warnings. That evening, while Grant was out at one such DM Incorporated meeting, Serafina sneaked into his home office again. She searched through his emails on the desktop computer, half expecting to find them guarded by advanced passwords. Surprisingly, the system was only partially secured, giving her enough access to his sent messages. Guilt gnawed at her, but she forged ahead, telling herself she had no choice. Her heart pounded as she read subject lines: private viewing at gallery, schedule for trip to Milan, romantic weekend. The latter email, from Grant to Dahlia, made Serafina's stomach twist. It spoke of a plan to spend a weekend at a 5-star resort in Tuscany. Ironically, the place Serafina had always dreamed of visiting for a baby moon. The email concluded with, "I have something special to show you there. Wear something stunning." Tears blurred her vision. She scanned more messages, exchanges laced with flirtatious undertones, references to our future, and even an attached image of a ring that looked remarkably similar to the one Serafina had found. Any lingering doubt evaporated. Grant wasn't just having a fling, he was carving out an entire alternate life with Dahlia. And the ring was the symbol of a new commitment, one that excluded Serafina entirely. She slumped into the desk chair, feeling lightheaded. Her hand instinctively moved to her belly, where the baby gave a fluttering kick. Fury, pain, and betrayal waged war inside her. Her beloved husband was planning to propose to another woman, while she, his pregnant wife, was left in the dark. As if on cue, the doorbell rang, jolting her from her anguish. Wiping her tears, she hastily exited the office. She felt like an intruder in her own home, carrying the burden of a secret she never wanted to discover. The path forward was clear. She needed to see it for herself, to confirm the ultimate betrayal with her own eyes. Only then could she decide how to protect herself and her unborn child from the devastating fallout that was sure to come. Over the next few days, Serafina wrestled with conflicting emotions. She yearned to confront Grant through the damning emails and the ring in his face, demand an explanation, demand answers. But she feared that any abrupt confrontation might lead to him shutting her out entirely, leaving her without the security or clarity she needed. Most of all, she worried about how the stress might affect the baby. Her indecision ended one afternoon when her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Unknown Serafina Lancaster? I believe we should talk. Meet me at the Dominion Lounge tonight at 9 p.m. It's urgent. D. Moretti. Serafina's heart lurched. Dahlia Moretti? Why would the mistress text her directly? 1,000 scenarios flashed through her mind, each more horrifying than the last. Was Dahlia taunting her, or perhaps wanting to strike a deal? Reluctantly, Serafina realized she couldn't ignore it. She needed to know what Dahlia was up to, especially if Grant had shared personal details that might jeopardize Serafina's future. That evening, Serafina arrived at the Dominion Lounge, a sophisticated cocktail bar tucked away in Midtown. Soft jazz music wafted through the dimly lit space, where glossy mahogany tables were bathed in the gentle glow of candlelight. Her heart pounded as she scanned the patrons, searching for Dahlia. It wasn't difficult to spot her, a glamorous figure with dark, cascading hair, seated at a corner table. She wore a fitted ivory jumpsuit, exuding effortless confidence. Nerves aflame, Serafina walked over, her maternity dress barely skimming her belly. She wondered if Dahlia noticed how visibly pregnant she was. The other woman motioned for her to sit, an enigmatic smile on her lips. "Thank you for coming," Dahlia began, her voice smooth yet laced with tension. She studied Serafina for a moment, perhaps gauging her reaction. "I know this is unconventional, but I felt we both deserved the truth." Serafina swallowed hard. "The truth about what?" Dahlia sighed, leaning forward. "I've been involved with Grant for almost a year now, and I didn't realize the extent of his deception. Until recently. He never told me you were pregnant. He made it sound like you two were growing apart, that the marriage was a formality. Then I found out he's still living with you, that you're preparing a nursery." She paused, her expression wavering. "He's planning to propose to me." Serafina's mouth went dry. "I know." Dahlia's eyes widened. "You do? Then why? Why do you stay?" For a moment, Serafina felt a flicker of anger. The audacity of this woman asking why she stayed in her marriage, as if Serafina were the intruder. But she forced herself to focus on the bigger picture. "I didn't know how far things had gone," Serafina admitted. "I found the ring, and I've seen the emails. I just needed proof." Dahlia nodded, lips trembling slightly. "Grant promised me everything, that we'd marry, build a life together. He even insisted we start a family. Now I realize he's been spinning lies to both of us." The confession stunned Serafina. Despite the hurt Dahlia had caused, she sensed genuine anguish in the woman's voice. They were both victims of Grant's elaborate betrayal. Unsure of how to respond, Serafina stared down at the flickering candle on the table, bracing herself for what Dahlia would say next, and the unimaginable fallout that would follow. For a moment, the two women sat in pained silence. They were from different worlds, Serafina, the sophisticated socialite wife, and Dahlia, the alluring mistress and rising art consultant. Yet here they were, sharing the same devastation inflicted by one man's deceit. Dahlia was the first to speak. "I asked you here because I realize I'm not the only one he's lied to. I'm not looking for sympathy, and I'm not proud of my role. I need clarity. He's still telling me he wants to propose, but I can't marry someone who might have another life behind my back. I wanted to see if you knew anything else he's hiding." Serafina's eyes burned with unshed tears. "He's told me nothing, obviously. I only discovered bits and pieces by accident. If he's telling you he'll propose, then that ring I found is definitely for you." Dahlia swallowed, eyes fixed on the candle's flame. "I didn't mean to hurt you. When we met, Grant claimed you two were separated. I believed him. It's only recently I learned you're pregnant and still living as husband and wife." Serafina glanced away, a storm of emotions roiling within her. She never imagined having this kind of exchange with her husband's mistress. Part of her wanted to lash out, blame Dahlia for all the heartbreak. But the rational part of her saw that Dahlia too was ensnared in Grant's web of lies. "Now that we both know the truth," Serafina managed, voice trembling, "what do we do about it?" Dahlia pursed her lips. "I'm not sure. But I do know that Grant is planning something big at a private estate next week. He invited me to a retreat in the Hamptons, said he wanted to make an important announcement. I suspect that's where he intends to propose, in front of some influential friends." Her eyes flickered with unease. "I can't go through with it, not without confronting him, but I also don't want to face him alone." Serafina's heart pounded at the idea. Would Dahlia really be willing to expose Grant publicly? And did she want to be part of that spectacle? A swirl of questions clouded her mind. How would this affect her baby, her reputation, their finances? But the image of Grant confidently continuing his charade drove her to an inescapable conclusion. "You want me there," Serafina stated. Half question, half assertion. Dahlia nodded, a determined glint in her eye. "If we force him to confront both of us in front of his circle, he can't lie his way out. He'll be humiliated, but at least we'll both get the truth." "Are you willing to do it?" Serafina hesitated. She thought about her unborn child, about the meltdown this confrontation might cause. Yet she also realized that letting Grant continue with his double life unchecked was even more dangerous. After a moment she nodded, voice trembling with resolution. "I'll do it. For the sake of my baby and for myself, I need to see his lies exposed." In that hushed corner of the Dominion Lounge, two wronged women found themselves forging an unlikely alliance. They would face the man who had deceived them both, determined to unmask his treachery. It was a decision that would set the stage for a confrontation more dramatic than either of them could imagine. The following days passed in a whirlwind of emotional upheaval. Serafina arranged for her close friend Charlotte to stay on standby in case the situation spiraled beyond control. Charlotte agreed without hesitation, promising to be just a phone call away. Meanwhile, Serafina discreetly squared away financial documents and important legal papers, an unsettling but necessary move to protect herself and her unborn child. She had seen enough cautionary tales among the city's elite to know how quickly power and money could vanish or be weaponized. Dahlia, for her part, kept Serafina informed about Grant's communication. True to form, he was texting Dahlia sweet nothings and sending pictures of the luxurious Hamptons estate he'd rented, describing romantic walks on the beach and candlelit dinners. Everything read like a love story he was crafting just for Dahlia, conveniently forgetting the pregnant wife he had at home. One evening, as Serafina was packing a small suitcase under the guise of visiting a friend, Grant noticed her. "Going somewhere?" he asked casually, leaning against the bedroom doorframe. "I'm taking a short break," she replied, striving for a neutral tone. "My friend is having a baby shower in Connecticut, and I promised I'd help her set up." Grant nodded, but there was a flicker of suspicion in his eyes. "You sure you should be traveling? You're well into your second trimester now. I'll be careful. It's not far." She forced a smile, grateful he seemed oblivious to her real intentions. A pang of sadness twisted her heart. Once upon a time, he would have insisted on coming along or fussed lovingly over her well-being. Now, his concern felt more perfunctory than genuine. The day before the trip, Dahlia texted Serafina the final details, an address to the estate, a general timeline, and an agreed-upon plan. Dahlia would arrive with Grant that afternoon and lead him into an intimate gathering with a few of his closest associates. The rumor was that he intended to pop the question in the garden around sunset. Serafina was to arrive unannounced, giving Dahlia a signal once she was there. The rest would unfold in real time, a live showdown no one would soon forget. On the morning of her departure, Serafina paused in the penthouse living room, gazing at the panoramic view of Manhattan. The city had always been her playground: charity balls, high-end galas, philanthropic luncheons. She had reveled in her role as Grant's wife, never questioning that their union was built on trust. Now, she felt more like a stranger in her own life, about to launch an ambush on the man she once believed she'd love forever. She laid a hand over her belly, whispering a silent apology to her unborn child. This confrontation was the only way to secure their future, a future that would hopefully be free of lies, free of the poison Grant had introduced into their marriage. Steeling herself with that resolve, she closed the door behind her, setting off for the Hamptons and a reckoning that would change everything. Driving along the quiet roads leading into the Hamptons, Serafina couldn't help but admire the sprawling mansions and manicured hedges that lined the route. Tall gates guarded secluded properties, each an architectural marvel in its own right. The further she went, the more her nerves tightened. She replayed the plan in her mind, arrived discreetly, text Dahlia a signal, then wait for the opportune moment to expose Grant's duplicity. When she finally reached the address, an imposing wrought iron gate blocked the entrance. Security was tight, a small booth with a uniformed guard. She presented the name Dahlia had given her, claiming she was a late edition guest invited by Mr. Lancaster. The guard scrolled through a tablet, verified with a polite nod, and pressed a button that made the gates swing open slowly. Serafina eased her car up a winding driveway, flanked by oak trees that must have stood for centuries. At the end of the drive stood a magnificent estate with creamy white walls, Corinthian columns, and a sprawling garden that stretched toward the Atlantic Ocean. It was the picture of affluence, exactly the kind of place Grant would choose for a grand, romantic gesture. She parked near a discreet corner and slipped out of the car, her heart pounding. A staff member ushered her toward the garden walkway. Soft classical music played from hidden speakers, and clusters of well-dressed guests sipped champagne, chatting politely. Some faces Serafina recognized from business galas, others were unfamiliar. She slipped behind a tall hedgerow, scanning the crowd until she spotted Dahlia. Standing near a marble fountain, Dahlia looked dazzling in a long, emerald-green gown. Her face, however, wore an expression of tight anticipation. Grant stood beside her in a tailored navy suit, holding her hand and speaking in hushed tones to a small group that included a top Lancaster capital investor and his wife. It was a scene that, to any outsider, might have passed for a betrothed couple hosting an engagement soiree. The sight of Grant gazing at Dahlia so intimately sent a stab of agony through Serafina's chest. She forced herself to hold steady, reminding herself why she was there. Slipping her phone from her clutch, she typed a quick text. "S, I'm here." From across the garden, she saw Dahlia discreetly read the message. An almost imperceptible nod confirmed she was ready. Dahlia touched Grant's arm, guiding him toward a manicured rose archway. A hush fell over the immediate circle, suggesting something special was about to happen. Serafina's breath caught in her throat as she saw a small jewelry box cradled in Grant's hand. This was it, the moment he would seal his betrayal. Emotion roiled inside her, heartbreak, fury, and an odd, detached astonishment that this was truly happening. She took a deep, trembling breath, waiting for Dahlia's cue. In a matter of seconds, the life she thought she knew would collide with a brutal, public reality, and there would be no going back. A soft rustle of leaves punctuated the tense silence as Grant led Dahlia under the rose archway. Several guests turned to watch, some pausing in mid-conversation, evidently sensing an important announcement. With practiced charm, Grant cleared his throat, capturing the attention of everyone in earshot. "Thank you all for joining us on this beautiful day," he began, wearing that magnetic smile Serafina had once adored. His voice carried a grand confidence, as though orchestrating a scene from a romantic film. "I have a special woman here with me, someone who has brought inspiration, creativity, and boundless joy into my life." Dahlia's expression wavered, caught between heartbreak and purpose. She cast a quick, almost imperceptible glance to the hedgerow where Serafina was hidden, then back at Grant. He knelt gracefully on one knee, opening the velvet ring box with a flourish. Gasps rippled through the crowd as the diamond sparkled under the afternoon sun. "Dahlia Moretti, will you?" At that exact moment, Dahlia raised a trembling hand, signaling for him to stop. She looked around, feigning a sudden hesitation. "Grant, before I answer, I think we should have everyone here," she said, her voice carrying a curious edge. "There's someone missing." A murmur rose among the onlookers. Grant's brow furrowed, confusion seizing his features. "Missing?" he echoed. "Who could be missing?" Dahlia locked eyes with Serafina's figure behind the hedges. In a deliberate motion, she lifted her hand and beckoned. Serafina's heart pounded so violently she feared it might harm the baby. Yet she forced herself forward, step by step, emerging from the greenery like a silent storm. All eyes snapped to her as she appeared in her elegant maternity dress, her pregnant belly unmistakable. Her face was ashen, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, but her posture remained resolute. A collective gasp went up from the guests, who recognized Serafina Lancaster from society pages and philanthropic circles. The expression on Grant's face was priceless shock, horror, and an attempt to mask it all with feigned confusion. "Serafina?" he choked out. He glanced at the ring, at Dahlia, then back to his pregnant wife. The color drained from his cheeks, and a cold sweat beaded on his forehead. What are you doing here?" With trembling courage, Serafina stepped closer, her gaze flickering from the ring to Dahlia and finally landing on Grant. "I think the question, Grant, is what are you doing?" she said, her voice surprisingly steady despite the tears threatening to break loose. "Proposing to another woman, while your wife is pregnant with your child?" An explosion of murmurs rippled through the audience. Cameras flashed. Someone was already capturing the unfolding drama on a phone. Grant looked like a man about to faint, the ring box still open in his hand. Dahlia took a step back, letting the weight of the spectacle fall entirely on Grant. His double life, once so carefully curated, lay fully exposed in a single catastrophic moment. And in that silence, broken only by the frantic snapping of photos and hushed whispers, Serafina finally allowed herself to feel the enormity of the betrayal. This was no longer just a rumor or a suspicion, it was living proof of Grant's deceit. And the entire world now bore witness to the ruin of his charade. Time seemed to freeze in the manicured garden, the tension so thick it was stifling. No one, not even Grant's closest associates, dared to speak or intervene. They simply stood there, an audience to the spectacle of a man who had tried to navigate two parallel lives, now colliding with catastrophic force. On his knees, the open ring box in hand, Grant's features contorted with shock, he began to stammer, desperately seeking an explanation to give the crowd and, more pressingly, to his pregnant wife, Serafina. The first, "This isn't what it looks like. Isn't it?" Serafina's voice resonated with quiet anguish, cutting through the air like a blade. "I found the ring in your office. I read the emails. You promised Dahlia a future, told her you were free, but you never said a word about your pregnant wife." Murmurs escalated, some guests shooting scornful looks at Grant, others stepping back, as if physically distancing themselves from the unfolding disgrace. Meanwhile, Dahlia crossed her arms, no longer playing the role of starry-eyed lover. She had achieved what she'd intended, publicly extracting the truth, and any illusions of romance between her and Grant were gone. Grant stumbled to his feet, slamming the ring box shut. His gaze darted between Serafina and Dahlia, searching for an ally and finding none. In the swirl of panic, he attempted damage control. "This is a misunderstanding, everyone. Please calm down." He tried to laugh it off, but the forced chuckle died in his throat. "Serafina, let's talk privately." "No," she shot back, tears finally slipping down her cheeks. "I deserve answers right here. So does Dahlia. So does everyone." Her voice wavered, but she stood her ground. "Explain how you justified betraying your wife and unborn child, all while planning a proposal to your mistress." At that, Dahlia lifted her chin, tears glimmering in her own eyes. "Yes, Grant, tell us how you thought you could manage both of us. Did you think we'd never find out? Or did you believe your power and money would cover your tracks?" The questions hung in the air, unanswered. Grant's face seemed to crumple under the dual weight of exposure and humiliation. He reached out as if to touch Serafina's arm, but she recoiled, the betrayal too raw. In that instant, cameras flashed again, capturing forever the image of a man defeated and two women bound by his treachery. Unable to bear the collective glare of the guests, Grant turned abruptly and stormed away, pushing past onlookers. A path cleared for him like the parting of seas, the crowd's silent judgment pounding on his back. As he disappeared into the estate, voices rose in fervent speculation. Some hovered near Dahlia, offering sympathy, while others approached Serafina, unsure how to console a pregnant wife spurned so publicly. Yet Serafina barely registered them. She stood in the garden, Dahlia just a few steps away, both women wearing the shock of hard truths on their faces. In that moment, it became painfully clear the life Serafina had known, one of illusions and carefully maintained facades, was shattered beyond repair. The path ahead would be steeped in legal battles, emotional trauma, and likely a public storm. But deep down, a spark of defiance warmed her chest. At least now, the lies were in the open, and in the ashes of Grant's deceit, she could begin to reclaim her life on her own terms. The fallout from the disastrous proposal was immediate and relentless. In the days following the fiasco, social media buzzed with leaked photos and videos of Grant Lancaster on bended knee while his pregnant wife appeared, tears streaming, revealing the ultimate betrayal. The tabloids had a field day. A humiliating clip even aired on a late-night talk show, fueling public outrage and mockery. Investors in Lancaster Capital expressed alarm, questioning Grant's judgment, morality, and capacity to keep the company's reputation intact. Stocks wobbled as rumors circulated that major clients might withdraw their accounts to avoid association with scandal. As if that weren't enough, a Bloomberg columnist wrote a blistering op-ed titled "The Fall of Grant Lancaster," predicting that the public relations nightmare could permanently tarnish the once respected brand. Amid the chaos, Grant barricaded himself in his office, ignoring the avalanche of calls and messages. He attempted one last strategy to salvage his predicament: a carefully crafted public apology, delivered through a press conference in which he portrayed himself as a man who made a regrettable mistake. But the damage was too severe to be mended by hollow words. The press skewered him. The internet responded with a mixture of derision and moral condemnation. Meanwhile, Serafina, though emotionally devastated, found an unexpected sense of empowerment. She hired a top-tier divorce attorney from the prestigious law firm Tinsdale and Morgan. With the baby's welfare at stake, she refused to be bullied or minimized by Grant's high-powered legal team. She and her attorney collected evidence, emails, financial documents, the eyewitness testimonies from the Hamptons debacle. The case was robust, leaving Grant's reputation and finances at risk of further collapse. As for Dahlia Moretti, she sought to distance herself from the scandal. She released a succinct statement about being misled and refused to answer any further press questions. While some publications painted her as a homewrecker, others acknowledged her as a victim of Grant's manipulative storyline. Art galleries that once courted her for showings now exercised caution, wary of the negative spotlight. Grant's perfect world, his business empire, social standing, and carefully curated image cracked like glass under the weight of his own deception. With legal pressures mounting and public sentiment against him, he found himself suddenly isolated. Friends from high society hesitated to stand by him, not wanting to be tainted by association. Even business partners he'd known for years quietly backed away. The karmic retribution, it seemed, was swift and brutal. No amount of wealth could buy him out of this scandal, and every path to redemption looked increasingly narrow. On top of everything, he was forced to reckon with the unborn child he had neglected, the pregnant wife he'd driven to heartbreak. The humiliation cut deeper by the day, a relentless echo of the moment the world watched his betrayal unfold. Yet while Grant struggled in his self-made storm, Serafina began to see a glimmer of possibility. For so long, her life had been entwined with Grant's success and illusions. Now, forced to stand alone, she discovered a backbone of resilience she never knew she possessed. If Grant thought she would crumble in his downfall, he was mistaken. The final chapter of her life with him was being written not by his hand, but hers, and it would end on her terms. Weeks rolled into months, and the winter winds sweeping through Manhattan symbolized the cold transition. Serafina was navigating, Despite the tabloids' never-ending appetite for gossip, she kept her focus on the looming divorce proceedings and the well-being of her unborn child. Every now and then, she'd catch a headline about Grant's latest round of bad press, clients pulling out, board members calling for his resignation, and she'd feel a pang of sorrow mixed with justified vindication. He had dug his own grave, and karma was merely fulfilling its role. During her quieter moments, she busied herself preparing the nursery in the penthouse she had once shared with Grant. His name was still on the deed, but her attorney was negotiating for Serafina to retain the property as part of the divorce settlement. She lovingly assembled a crib, decorated the walls with soft colors and whimsical animal decals, finding solace in the simple act of nesting. She was determined that her child would enter the world in a space filled with calm, free from the turmoil that had defined the last few months. In the lead up to the baby's birth, Serafina's circle of true friends rallied around her. Charlotte organized a cozy baby shower, attended by supportive acquaintances who admired Serafina's poise through adversity. Gifts and warm wishes poured in, a testament to the empathy people felt for a woman forging ahead after public betrayal. As the divorce proceedings intensified, Grant tried several ploys, accusations of sabotage, pleas for reconciliation, even belated admissions of guilt. But Serafina stood firm, guided by her attorney's advice and her own newfound resolve. In the final court hearing, the judge acknowledged the overwhelming evidence of Grant's infidelity and emotional harm. He ruled in Serafina's favor for a substantial settlement, ensuring both her and the baby's financial security. On the day she received the divorce decree, Serafina felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. This was the final severance from the life she had envisioned, the grand illusions of a perfect marriage, the man she once believed loved her unconditionally. Yet there was also peace. The future ahead might be uncharted, but it was hers. No more lies, no more playing second fiddle to a man's double life. Shortly after, Serafina went into labor. Surrounded by a small team of supportive friends, she brought a healthy baby boy into the world. Holding him in her arms, she felt the magnitude of love and protection flood her heart. She named him Gabriel, symbolizing strength and hope amidst turmoil. In the quiet hours of the hospital room as Gabriel slept, Serafina gazed out the window at the city lights. She whispered a promise to her son, a vow that she would build a life of honesty, love, and resilience for both of them. Grant's betrayal might have been the darkest chapter of her life, but that chapter was closed. Ahead lay the promise of a new dawn where she could finally breathe free, unfettered by the weight of secrets. From lavish proposals to shocking revelations, Serafina's life changed forever the moment she discovered her husband's double life. But through heartbreak and humiliation, she summoned a fierce resilience, protecting herself and her unborn child from his deceit. Even as Grant faced a public reckoning, a rapid fall from grace, Serafina focused on forging a future filled with honesty, love, and unbreakable strength. Thank you for sharing in this emotional journey. If Serafina's story of betrayal and triumph resonated with you, please like this video to show your support. Share it with friends who need a story of hope amid adversity. And subscribe to this channel to discover more stories that prove even the darkest trials can lead to a brighter tomorrow. Your engagement helps bring more empowering tales like this to life. Stay tuned, and remember, sometimes the hardest karma ushers in the greatest personal victory.
Have you ever wondered how one scandalous leak could destroy an entire empire overnight? Picture this. A stunning millionaire, revered as a philanthropic tycoon, and his radiant pregnant wife, seemingly the perfect power couple. But beneath the glossy photographs and luxurious charity galas, dark secrets simmer. when an explosive video surfaces online revealing her husband's steamy affair. The pregnant wife doesn't crumble in silence. Instead, she steps into the blinding lights of a press conference, shocking the world and obliterating his career in a single heartbeat. Get ready for a tale of betrayal, resilience, and a downfall so swift it will leave you breathless. Ava Carmichael first met Oliver Carmichael at a fundraiser for the Wilson Children's Hospital in Chicago. Oliver was the guest of honor, a self-made millionaire who had gained national fame after selling his tech startup to Google for a fortune rumored to be in the hundreds of millions. Ava, then a junior event planner, was charged with ensuring the evening ran smoothly. From the moment she locked eyes with him across the packed ballroom, her world shifted. He approached her with a gentle smile and an outstretched hand. Polite conversation turned into an exchange of dreams and life goals. The chemistry between them was electric. Oliver, charming yet aloof, was drawn to Ava's warm-hearted nature and pragmatic approach to life. Their whirlwind romance made headlines in society pages when Oliver took Ava to a private island in the Caribbean. Photos of them strolling barefoot on a secluded beach landed in People magazine, and whispers of an engagement soon surfaced in tabloids. By the time he proposed under a canopy of twinkling fairy lights in front of 1,000 roses, Ava was head over heels. The wedding was a grand affair at the historic Drake Hotel, with the CEO of Morgan Stanley among the guests, and a performance by a famous R&B singer that Oliver secretly flew in. Their union was hailed as a modern fairy tale, the philanthropic tech millionaire and the compassionate event planner uniting their energies to make the world a better place. But in every fairy tale lurks a moment of darkness, and for Ava and Oliver, it was just around the corner. A year after their lavish wedding, Ava discovered she was pregnant. The news filled the Carmichael mansion with excitement. Oliver appeared overjoyed. He'd often spoken of wanting a large family, and Ava was ecstatic to finally be starting that journey with him. They announced the pregnancy during a red carpet charity gala benefiting children with rare diseases. Ava wore a flowing emerald green gown that discreetly showed off a blossoming baby bump. When she and Oliver stepped onto the stage, the entire crowd erupted in applause. Cameras flashed, capturing the moment Oliver placed a tender hand on Ava's stomach. Soon after, local outlets like the Chicago Tribune covered the Carmichael baby buzz, praising Oliver for his ongoing philanthropic endeavors. A short feature on NBC's Today Show hinted that the Carmichaels might become America's new it couple. Ava was flattered, albeit slightly overwhelmed by the sudden attention. Behind the scenes, however, something was off. Oliver had become more distant, engrossed in late-night phone calls and cryptic text messages. When Ava asked about them, he brushed her concerns aside with practiced ease. "It's just business, sweetheart." She tried to believe him. After all, she knew the burden of running a multi-million-dollar conglomerate was enormous. But as her belly grew, so did her suspicions. Faint clues, the lingering trace of unfamiliar perfume on his collar. A second phone he never let her see gnawed at her peace of mind. Still, Ava reassured herself that any man under immense pressure could behave evasively. She clung to hope that once their baby arrived, Oliver would slow down and refocus on their family. Little did she know the cracks forming in their marriage were about to split wide open. With each passing week of her pregnancy, Ava noticed that Oliver's schedule became more erratic. Some nights he would rush through dinner offering half-hearted compliments about her cooking and then dash off to emergency meetings. Other times he'd claim to be traveling for business expansions, leaving Ava alone in their expansive mansion, the echo of her own footsteps, a constant reminder of her isolation. What truly unsettled Ava was the subtle shift in Oliver's demeanor. He was no longer the attentive husband who'd once tracked down her favorite bakery an hour away to bring her freshly baked croissants. Instead, he seemed perpetually preoccupied, scrolling his phone under the dinner table, offering only partial attention to Ava's excited updates about the baby's kicks. In an attempt to distract herself from mounting worries, Ava threw herself into philanthropic work. She organized a fundraiser for hurricane relief, collaborating with real-life crisis manager and PR expert Liz White, a name well known in Chicago's elite circles for orchestrating big fundraising galas. Liz noticed Ava's tense smile and asked if everything was okay at home. Ava merely shrugged it off with a practiced grin. Little did Ava know Liz would soon become more than just a professional acquaintance. Liz's skill in handling scandals and public image crises would be invaluable when the Carmichael family's private pain exploded onto the public stage. For now, Ava remained clueless about the danger simmering beneath the surface. She believed the biggest concern she faced was coaxing Oliver to show up on time for doctor's appointments, but in the hush of her mind, a quiet fear took root. If Oliver was pushing her away, who or what was he pulling closer? Ava never considered herself a snoop. She valued privacy and believed that trust was the bedrock of any strong relationship. But as uncertainty haunted her nights, she found herself unable to resist the urge to peek into Oliver's world. One evening, when Oliver announced yet another urgent meeting and sped off in his car, Ava was left in the large, empty mansion, feeling the baby stir inside her. The sense of foreboding was unbearable. She walked into his home office, a spacious, modern study lined with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline. Her eyes landed on his desktop computer, which glowed with a faint screensaver. With trembling hands, she jiggled the mouse. To her surprise, no password prompt appeared. The desktop opened immediately to an email account. A pang of guilt clutched her, but desperation drove her to click. Most messages were innocuous business correspondences, but a name caught her eye. Miranda Devereaux, a high-profile interior designer from New York. Ava recalled Oliver mentioning Miranda once, someone he was hiring for a new condo project. She clicked on the email thread and found an exchange of flirtatious notes, culminating in a few short video clips. Heart pounding. Ava hesitated before opening them. The first clip showed Oliver at a hotel bar, with Miranda leaning in intimately. The second clip was longer security camera footage from the hotel corridor. It showed Oliver and Miranda entering a suite together late at night, arms wrapped around each other. A wave of nausea overwhelmed Ava, nearly overshadowing the usual pregnancy queasiness. Without a second thought, she pressed forward and sent the emails and clips to herself. She had seen enough, and her world would never be the same again. Oliver returned well past midnight, reeking of expensive cologne. The moment he stepped inside, Ava's tears were already running down her cheeks. She waited for him in the living room. The lights dimmed to a cold glow. Her hands gripped her phone, the forwarded videos ready to play at any second. Ava, he called, visibly startled by her tear-streaked face. "What's wrong?" She didn't bother with niceties. Heart pounding, she pressed play on her phone, letting the damning footage speak for itself. The room filled with the muffled sounds of Oliver's laughter in that hotel corridor, Miranda's figure clinging to his arm. Oliver's eyes widened, a flicker of panic crossing his usually controlled features. He reached for the phone. "Where did you get this?" he demanded, voice tight. Ava yanked it away, raw hurt radiating in her gaze. "So it's true," she breathed. "You've been cheating on me. With her. At first, Oliver tried to deny it. Words like misunderstanding and business acquaintance tumbled from his mouth. But the evidence was incontrovertible. Finally, he sank onto the sofa, running a hand through his hair. It was just once he muttered, eyes downcast. A mistake. You have to believe me. Ava's indignation flared. A mistake. You've been emailing her for months, from what I can see. Don't lie to me, Oliver. Not now. He bowed his head, too ashamed or too trapped to continue. Furious tears streamed down Ava's face, and she felt the baby kick within her, a cruel reminder of the life she carried, the future she was trying to protect. In that instant, the fairy tale they'd built shattered into pieces, leaving Ava with only heartbreak and betrayal. Ava spent the night in the guest bedroom, barely sleeping. Every time she closed her eyes, the images of Oliver with Miranda replayed like a cruel nightmare. By dawn, she felt hollowed out, yet beneath the grief grew a potent anger she had never experienced before. Before Oliver left for work the next day, she confronted him in the kitchen. She was still in her pajamas, hair disheveled, a world away from the poised socialite she'd become known as in Chicago's charity circuit. End it, Ava demanded, voice quivering with anger. Break it off with Miranda for good, and tell the press you're stepping down from the Devereaux project, and you'll be going to marriage counseling with me. Oliver looked at her for a long moment. He seemed more fatigued than she had ever seen him. I'll end it, Ava, he promised, exhaling sharply. I don't want to lose our family. The words should have comforted her, but they didn't. The betrayal ran too deep. I'm pregnant with your child, Oliver. Do you even understand what this stress is doing to me, to our baby? His silence spoke louder than any defense he could muster. He offered a half-hearted nod before leaving. Ava watched him go, unsure if she had just saved their marriage or delayed its collapse. Though she demanded a swift end to his infidelity, a haunting question nagged at her. Could trust ever be fully repaired once it was broken? Little did she know the storm was only beginning, and a single promise from Oliver would do little to protect them from the catastrophe that awaited. Unable to bear the suffocating loneliness of the mansion, Ava sought solace with her closest friend, Delilah Pierce. They met at a cozy neighborhood cafe, where Delilah arrived with open arms and a wave of concern evident in her eyes. In hushed tones, Ava recounted the entire saga, from the suspicious late nights to the damning hotel footage. Delilah listened occasionally, clutching Ava's hand, her coffee growing cold. I always had a bad feeling about Oliver's constant business trips, she admitted, a note of regret in her voice. I'm sorry I never brought it up. Ava found some measure of comfort in Delilah's empathy. I feel so stupid, she said, tears threatening to spill once more. How could I not see it sooner? Delilah gave Ava's hand a firm squeeze. Don't blame yourself. Oliver's the one who made this choice. You're carrying his child. You deserved better. Over the next hour, Delilah offered unwavering support, suggesting therapy resources, and even offering to help Ava prepare for any potential legal issues. You have to protect yourself, especially with the baby on the way. I know a great lawyer, Samantha Holden, who handled my cousin's messy divorce, just in case. Though the mention of a lawyer made Ava's stomach churn, she recognized the importance of covering all her bases. As they parted ways, Delilah vowed to stand by her side through the ordeal, no matter how ugly it got. Walking back to her car, Ava felt slightly less isolated, but the protective bubble of friendship could only do so much. She would have to face the storm head-on, whether Oliver kept his promise or not. A few days later, the hush of early morning was shattered by Ava's phone, buzzing relentlessly on the bedside table. She groggily picked it up to see dozens of messages and missed calls. Her heart pounded. Could something have happened to Oliver? But as she opened social media, dread coiled in her stomach. A gossip account with thousands of followers had posted a scandalous blind item about a tech mogul with a pregnant wife caught in an affair with a New York socialite. The post included grainy stills from the very hotel footage Ava had discovered, though faces were blurred. Her phone exploded with notifications, friends, acquaintances, even random strangers wanting details. Overwhelmed, Ava felt the baby move as though sensing the turmoil. She quickly turned off her phone, tears stinging her eyes. In a panic, she rushed downstairs to find Oliver. He was in his office phone, pressed to his ear, shouting into the receiver. She overheard him say, "I don't care what it costs, just kill the story," before slamming the phone down. Their gazes locked. Ava's heart sank at the desperation etched across his features. "Someone leaked it?" she asked, voice trembling. He nodded grimly. "Yes, but we can't be certain who. It might be someone from the hotel staff or someone else." He shot her a look, as if suspecting she had shared the video. Ava bristled, stepping back. "Do you really think I'd do that? You promised to end this, Oliver. Now look what's happening." Guilt flashed across his face, replaced almost instantly by defensiveness. "We need to put out a statement denying everything. My entire career could be on the line." Ava swallowed hard. She wasn't ready for the media circus, but it was already knocking at their door. Their once private nightmare was about to go very, very public. Oliver scrambled to manage the crisis, summoning his high-profile PR team, led by the formidable Kate Winthrop, a specialist in damage control for celebrity and corporate scandals. Within hours, she arrived at the Carmichael mansion, with a flurry of assistants' laptops and a meticulously organized crisis management plan. "We're dealing with an unverified leak," Kate said briskly. "We have two primary strategies: deny or deflect. If we deny, you risk fueling the rumor mill. If we deflect, we might direct attention elsewhere, but it has to be believable." Oliver paced the room, raking a hand through his hair. "What about claiming these images are doctored? That this is just an attempt to undermine my philanthropic work?" Kate's expression remained neutral. "We can try that, but the pictures look too authentic. And if more footage surfaces, we'll be caught lying." Ava observed the meeting from a corner, her mind swirling. She felt like a spectator at the unveiling of her own heartbreak, reduced to a mere prop in Oliver's PR strategy. As talk of hush money and NDAs swirled, she felt the baby kick a stark reminder that this crisis was not just about reputations, but the future of her family. Eventually, Oliver turned to her. "Ava, I need you to stand by my side. We have to present a united front." His words were a bitter pill. She recalled his promise to end the affair. Yet here they were, strategizing about half-truths and misdirection. Ava thought of the unborn child, of the intense scrutiny they would soon face. With shaky resolve, she nodded. She hated the idea of lying to the public, but she also couldn't bear the thought of the scandal smashing their life to bits. She had no idea that the worst was still to come. Even as Oliver's PR team prepared an official statement labeling the footage misleading and maliciously edited, a new crisis brewed behind the scenes. Miranda Devereaux. The woman at the center of the scandal refused to quietly fade away. Instead, she began making demands of her own. One evening, Oliver returned home from an emergency meeting with Miranda's lawyers. Ava watched his strained face as he poured himself a stiff drink. "She's threatening to release a full statement," he muttered. "Claims she's got text messages, voice memos, everything." She wants compensation, or she'll go public. Ava felt an icy dread settle in her stomach. If Miranda released more evidence, the shallow denials being fed to the media would crumble instantly. "So what are you going to do?" she asked, voice tight. Oliver's silence was telling. He tossed back his drink before answering. "We're negotiating. She wants a huge sum, plus some endorsement deals for her design business. It's extortion, basically." The thought of Oliver paying off Miranda made Ava's skin crawl. "And you're seriously considering it?" He ran a hand over his face. "If it means saving my reputation, yes. You don't understand what's at stake. Our philanthropic work, my investments, people rely on me. If I go down, a lot of people will be hurt." For a split second, Ava wondered if Miranda was truly the villain here. After all, she hadn't vowed to be faithful. Oliver had. The line between right and wrong blurred beneath the weight of scandal, greed, and betrayal. In that moment, Ava realized that Oliver's talk of saving his reputation might overshadow his concern for their marriage or the innocent child they were bringing into a world of lies. Waking up to relentless texts and calls from acquaintances, Ava found her anxiety hitting new heights. Even visits to her OB/GYN became fraught with tension as she feared being recognized and judged. Everywhere she went, it felt like eyes were on her analyzing the scandal. Social media was ablaze with speculation. A few brave tabloids even claimed to have exclusive new evidence pending release. The constant swirl of rumors left Ava hollow and exhausted. Did half of Chicago already assume Oliver was cheating? Did they pity her, or worse, mock her for staying alone in her bedroom? Ava scrolled through her phone, scanning social media. She came across a tweet from Anderson Cooper, a real-life figure known for calling out hypocrisy on his CNN segments, commenting generally about the moral failings of the wealthy and powerful. Although it didn't mention Oliver by name, the timing was suspiciously pointed. She felt a spike of anxiety. Ava found herself questioning everything she thought she knew. How many times had Oliver lied? Was he truly remorseful or just scrambling to hide his tracks? And what if Miranda wasn't the only affair? The seeds of doubt took root, thriving in the soil of shattered trust. One thing became undeniable. If this story escalated further, Oliver's polished facade would collapse. The philanthropic golden boy would be exposed as a fraud, and Ava would be caught in the crossfire. For the sake of her baby, she had to find a way to protect herself, even if it meant going against the man she had once adored. Just as Kate Winthrop and her crisis team finalized a hopefully worded statement for Oliver to deliver, the bomb dropped. Late one evening, a popular YouTube channel called City Secrets Unmasked posted the unedited high-definition version of the hotel footage. This time, the camera angle was clear as day. Oliver's face was unmistakable, laughing, leaning in, whispering to Miranda, before disappearing into a room. Within minutes, the video was trending. National outlets picked it up, and Twitter erupted with the hashtag Carmichael Scandal. Oliver's name soared to the top of search engines, overshadowing even major political news. Ava watched the chaos unfold from the living room television, the baby's weight pressing on her ribs as if in response to her stress. She felt an overwhelming desire to flee to escape the relentless spotlight. But this was her life. There was nowhere to hide from the digital mob. Within hours, the Carmichael mansion was besieged by paparazzi. Some had the audacity to shout questions about her pregnancy, insinuating that the unborn child might not even be Oliver's. Ava gasped at the cruelty. The speculation stung like an open wound. Oliver was unreachable, holed up in his corporate office downtown, bombarded by phone calls from investors and lawyers. Alone. Ava cradled her belly tears, silently rolling down her face. The humiliation was staggering. She wondered, had Oliver realized in his pursuit of forbidden thrills that the collateral damage would be so immense as the scandal spread beyond the local Chicago scene? Ava knew one thing for sure: there was no more denying or deflecting. The world had just gotten a front-row seat to their marital nightmare. Desperate to hear Oliver's side of the story, and furious at his vanishing act, Ava summoned her strength and drove to the headquarters of Carmichael Innovations, located in a sleek, glass-paneled tower in the heart of downtown Chicago. Security guards recognized her instantly and allowed her up, though they exchanged anxious glances. Inside Oliver's office, she found him in a tense meeting with his board of directors. They huddled around a massive mahogany table, glowering at him as if he were a pariah. The room fell silent when Ava walked in, her visibly pregnant figure, a jarring reminder of the personal turmoil overshadowing their corporate meltdown. "Gentlemen," Oliver began, attempting composure. "This is my wife, Ava." She faced them chin high, despite the dread curling in her stomach. "Could I speak to my husband alone?" she asked softly, though her eyes burned with determination. Most of the board members exited without protest, some casting disapproving looks at Oliver. Once they were gone, Ava unleashed the questions that had kept her awake at night. "You said you'd end things, but the world has proof that you didn't. How could you lie to me again?" Oliver rubbed his temples, eyes bloodshot from stress. Miranda was supposed to keep it quiet. She swore she wouldn't let it get this far. "I tried to fix it, Ava, I really did." His words only stoked her fury. "All you did was attempt to bury the truth with money," she said, voice trembling. "You've destroyed our marriage, our child's future, everything." They stared at each other across the empty boardroom. For the first time, Oliver's confident mask cracked, revealing a man trapped by his own misdeeds. "What do you want me to do?" he finally asked, voice hollow. Ava couldn't answer. She was no longer sure there was anything left he could do to make this right. In the ensuing days, the corporate fallout grew dire. Prominent investors in Carmichael Innovations withdrew support, worried about the scandal's impact on share prices. Philanthropic partners quietly severed ties, not wishing to be associated with an affair so brazenly exposed. Oliver spent most nights at the office attempting to salvage deals. The mansion felt more like a tomb than a home. Paparazzi still lurked outside the gates, waiting for a glimpse of the troubled couple. Ava found herself pacing the halls, mind whirling with uncertainty. A scheduled charity event for the Wilson Children's Hospital. A cause close to both Oliver and Ava dropped Oliver from the speaker lineup. This move spoke volumes. If even the hospital Oliver once championed was distancing itself, he was rapidly running out of allies. Realizing that her own philanthropic work was now at risk of being overshadowed by scandal. Ava called Liz White, the crisis manager she had worked with months ago. Over coffee in a secluded part of the city, Ava poured out her worries about the baby, the paparazzi, and the unrelenting media scrutiny. Liz listened sympathetically. "You need to start thinking about your own image, Ava, not just Oliver's. Because right now everyone sees you as the victim. But if this keeps spiraling, they might start seeing you as complicit or naive." Ava swallowed hard. She didn't want a war with Oliver, but it was becoming clear she needed to protect herself and her unborn child. She left that meeting with Liz, knowing she had to make some hard decisions, and soon. By now, the Carmichael scandal was headline news across major networks. CNN's Anderson Cooper, Having previously hinted at the moral failings of the powerful, dedicated a segment specifically to Oliver's downfall, inviting legal and ethical experts to weigh in. The public response was brutal. Many saw Oliver as the epitome of hypocritical arrogance, preaching philanthropy, while betraying his pregnant wife behind closed doors. At the mansion, Ava tried to maintain some semblance of normalcy. She kept her prenatal appointments, attempted to rest, and even started decorating the nursery in a soft palette of yellows and greys. Yet every trip out was a gauntlet of flashing cameras and shouted questions. She began dreading the very thought of leaving home. One particular morning, the tension became unbearable. Oliver returned from another fruitless series of investor meetings, shoulders slumped. When he saw Ava packing a suitcase in the master bedroom, a flash of panic ignited in his eyes. "What are you doing?" he asked, voice trembling. "I'm going to stay with Delilah for a while," she replied, zipping the suitcase shut. "I need space. This environment isn't healthy for me or the baby." Oliver opened his mouth to protest, but no words came out. Instead, he deflated like a punctured balloon, slumping against the doorway. "Ava, please," he finally managed. "I'm losing everything." "I can't lose you too." She looked at him, sadness washing over her. "I wish you'd thought of that before, Miranda. I need time to figure out if there's anything left worth saving." His eyes brimmed with tears, but he said nothing more. Ava dragged her suitcase down the grand staircase, stepping out into the barrage of paparazzi alone, her heart heavy with betrayal and sorrow. It was during Ava's stay at Delilah's cozy brownstone that she received a phone call from a blocked number. Although she usually avoided unknown calls, something compelled her to answer. A soft voice introduced itself. "This is Miranda Devereaux. Please don't hang up." Shock rendered Ava momentarily mute. Her pulse hammered in her ears. Why would Miranda call her directly? She contemplated ending the call, but couldn't resist her curiosity. "What do you want?" she asked, struggling to keep her voice steady. Miranda sighed on the other end. "Believe it or not, I never intended for this mess to go public. Someone else got hold of the security footage. I can't say more without jeopardizing my safety, but I wanted you to know it wasn't me who leaked it." Ava's throat tightened. "That doesn't change what happened or how you and Oliver—" She paused, tears threatening. "You ruined my marriage, my life." A moment of silence passed. "I understand you hate me," Miranda said quietly. "But I'm calling because there's something else you should know. Oliver has been hiding more than just our affair. He's in deep trouble legally and financially. I'm sure you've noticed the deals collapsing around him. It's not just because of the scandal, there's a federal probe into his finances. Tax evasion, money laundering, I'm not certain. But it's serious." A swirl of nausea hit Ava. The idea that Oliver's downfall was bigger than an affair blindsided her. "How do you know this?" she finally managed. Miranda hesitated. "Let's just say I overheard some conversations." "Be careful, Ava. If the feds get involved, they won't hesitate to come after anyone close to Oliver, even you." Before Ava could respond, the line clicked off. She stared at her phone, heart racing with a new dread. Oliver's betrayal might pale in comparison to a looming legal catastrophe, and she was now unwittingly entangled in it. Miranda's warning weighed heavily on Ava's mind. She remembered Delilah's earlier recommendation to consult a lawyer. After days of sleepless nights, she mustered the courage to do just that. Through Delilah's referral, she met Samantha Holden, a skilled divorce attorney known for her tenacity in high-profile cases. They met in Samantha's sleek downtown office, shielded from prying paparazzi. Sitting across from the polished oak desk, Ava felt her cheeks burn with humiliation as she recounted Oliver's affair and Miranda's foreboding message about the feds. Samantha took thorough notes, her brow furrowed. This is bigger than just infidelity, Ava. If Oliver is facing a federal investigation for financial crimes, you need to protect your interests. If marital funds are implicated, the government could freeze assets. The words froze Ava's blood. I don't know the first thing about these allegations. I'm pregnant. I just want my baby to be safe. Samantha offered a sympathetic smile. I understand. My advice is to quietly file for legal separation. That way you create a clear line between your finances and Oliver's. If he's in legal jeopardy, it may protect you and your child from any fallout. And if things get worse, we can move forward with a full divorce. Though the idea of legally distancing herself from Oliver filled Ava with sadness. She knew it might be her only chance at safeguarding her child's future. With trembling hands, she signed an engagement letter, officially hiring Samantha as her attorney. As she left the office, a flurry of mixed emotions assailed her: grief for the marriage she once cherished, anger at Oliver's deceptions, and a glimmer of relief that she was finally taking control of her own fate. In the aftermath of the leaked video, Oliver's reputation took a nosedive. Investors fled in droves, stock prices for Carmichael Innovations tumbled, and philanthropic projects froze. The media was relentless, and yet the public had not heard directly from Ava beyond a few brief sightings and no-comment statements. The tabloids, sniffing blood, began speculating wildly. Was Ava quietly arranging a divorce settlement? Had Oliver threatened her into silence? Some articles even suggested that her pregnancy was a fabricated ruse to garner sympathy. When Liz White, the crisis manager, called to check on Ava, she proposed a bold solution. Ava, you need to tell your side of the story in your own words. Let the world see you're not just a silent, suffering wife. Ava hesitated. Standing in front of a microphone, addressing a horde of reporters while pregnant, no less, sounded terrifying. But Liz's argument made sense. The rumor mill was devouring her in absentia, and with Oliver refusing to come clean about his affair or financial dealings, it might be time to cut ties publicly. I'll do it, Ava finally said, surprising even herself with her resolve. But I'm not lying or covering for Oliver anymore. I'll tell the truth just enough to protect myself and my baby. Liz agreed, her voice brimming with encouragement. Leave the logistics to me. I'll arrange a controlled press conference, minimal chaos. But be ready. Once you open that door, there's no going back. Ava closed her eyes, feeling the baby move. She understood the gravity of her choice. This wasn't just about clearing her name. It was about reclaiming her identity and ensuring her child wouldn't be born into a vortex of secrets. In the days leading up to the press conference, Ava resided in a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. She prepared statements with Liz White, conferred with Samantha Holden, and braced herself for the inevitable media frenzy. All the while she heard almost nothing from Oliver. Then on the eve of her scheduled press appearance, she received a late-night phone call. It was Oliver, his voice shaking with desperation. Ava, please don't do this. Don't go public. It'll ruin any chance I have left to fix things. She steadied herself, fighting back tears. You've had every opportunity to fix this, Oliver. You chose not to. This press conference isn't about vengeance. It's about protecting myself and our baby. The silence on the other end was palpable. Finally, he spoke, a voice hollow. I understand you're angry. But you have no idea the legal mess I'm in. A public spectacle will just invite scrutiny. It could land me behind bars. A hollow laugh escaped Ava's lips. That's not my fault. You did this to yourself. Oliver's next words chilled her. If you ruin me, you ruin the future of this family. Think about that before you step in front of those cameras. She hung up, breathing heavily, as if she'd just run a marathon. For a moment, doubt tugged at her. She still cared for the father of her child, even after all his betrayals. But the time for illusions was over. Ava swallowed the lump in her throat and reminded herself why she was doing this, to clear her name, to safeguard her baby's future. Oliver had made his bed. Tomorrow, the world would finally hear her side. Morning dawned on Chicago gray clouds gathering in the sky, as if foretelling the tumultuous day ahead. Despite the swirling anxiety in her chest, Ava felt an unexpected sense of calm. She'd chosen a simple but elegant maternity dress in a soft ivory shade, the color symbolizing a fresh start in her mind. Liz White and Samantha Holden met her at the small conference venue, an airy minimalist space rented for the occasion. They'd intentionally avoided the grandiosity of a hotel ballroom, hoping to keep the focus on Ava's message rather than ostentatious surroundings. Security guards milled about outside, ensuring the event remained somewhat contained. Inside, journalists from major outlets like CNN. The Chicago Tribune and local TV stations fidgeted with microphones. Cameras were poised, ready to broadcast every second. The hush in the room was electric. Ava's heart drummed like thunder in her ears. She kept a hand on her belly, drawing strength from the life growing within. As Liz guided her onto the small stage, Ava spotted a handful of supportive faces in the front row. Delilah, Samantha, and even a hospital representative from Wilson Children's Hospital who had come to show solidarity. Taking a steadying breath, Ava stepped behind the podium. Flashbulbs sparked, and a wave of murmurs filled the room. The tension was thick like a coiled spring on the verge of releasing. It was time to speak her truth, not just about the affair, but about the flawed man behind the philanthropic facade and the toll his secrets had taken on her life. The calm before the storm was over. Ava Carmichael was about to face the world head-on. The conference room fell silent as Ava approached the microphone. For a moment, she simply stood there, letting the bright camera lights and hushed anticipation wash over her. "Good morning," she began, voice trembling slightly. "I'm Ava Carmichael. I'm here to address the rumors and speculation regarding my marriage to Oliver Carmichael." Eyes from every corner of the room locked onto her. Journalists leaned forward, pens poised. Cameras zoomed in, capturing every flicker of emotion. Ava's heart pounded like a drum, but she pressed on. She spoke of her pregnancy, how she had longed to start a family in a loving, stable home. She confessed that Oliver's affair was both devastating and humiliating, that she had discovered undeniable proof of his betrayal. She explained that while she once considered standing by him, his continued deception and the possibility of deeper legal entanglements made it impossible for her to remain silent. At one point, a wave of emotion gripped her. Ava paused, tears threatening to cloud her vision. She glanced at Delilah, who offered a reassuring nod. Summoning her courage, Ava continued. "I'm not here for revenge," she clarified, voice growing steadier. "I'm here to protect my child and to separate myself from the lies that have come to light. Any future decisions, including legal ones, will be made with the well-being of my baby in mind." When she finished, the room erupted in questions. Liz stepped in, reminding reporters to keep their inquiries respectful and that Ava's attorney would handle anything pertaining to potential lawsuits. Ava exhaled, her body trembling with relief and nerves. She had done it. She'd laid bare her pain, her intentions, her truth. At that moment, she had no idea how drastically this single press conference would alter the course of Oliver's life and hers. Ava's press conference ricocheted through the media like a lightning strike. Clipped segments ran on national news networks. The full recording went viral on YouTube. Social media platforms erupted with support, condemnation, and endless debate. Hashtags like "Stand with Ava" and "Carmichael Collapse" trended simultaneously. Public perception of Oliver flipped almost overnight. People who once admired him for his charitable work now saw him as a manipulative hypocrite. The sincerity in Ava's statement made it clear she was not seeking revenge, but merely staking her claim to dignity and security for her unborn child. A day after the press conference, CNN's Anderson Cooper weighed in again, praising Ava for her courage and condemning the toxic culture that allowed powerful men to evade accountability. The Chicago Tribune published an op-ed titled "The Strength of Ava Carmichael, Lauding Her Poise Under Pressure." Corporate repercussions were swift. A major investment round that Oliver had been courting fell apart. The few remaining partners in Carmichael Innovations distanced themselves, hastily removing Oliver's name from promotional materials and websites. Even philanthropic boards started voting him out to preserve their reputations. Ava watched the news unfold from Delilah's living room. It felt surreal to witness the magnitude of the fallout she had unleashed by simply speaking her truth. A twinge of guilt gnawed at her. Oliver's downfall was monumental, and part of her still cared about the father of her child. But she couldn't deny the satisfaction of finally freeing herself from complicity in his deception. Little did she realize the next blow in this unraveling saga would come not from tabloid headlines, but from a place with the power to permanently reshape Oliver's destiny, and by extension her own. Just when the media firestorm seemed at its peak, another bombshell dropped. The U.S. Attorney's Office announced a federal investigation into Carmichael Innovations. News broke that Oliver Carmichael was being indicted on charges of tax evasion, wire fraud, and securities fraud. The timing, mere days after Ava's press conference, sent shockwaves through financial circles. Cameras swarmed outside the federal courthouse as Oliver was spotted arriving with his legal team, forced to enter a plea in front of a judge. The humiliating spectacle was broadcast live, capturing every grimace and tense exchange. The very networks that once celebrated Oliver's philanthropic feats now tracked his every misstep. Ava learned of the indictment through a news alert on her phone. Her stomach churned. She sat on Delilah's couch phone in hand and watched the live coverage. Oliver looked haggard shadows under his eyes, the weight of impending consequences etched into his every movement. The charges carried severe penalties, if convicted. Oliver faced the possibility of a long prison sentence. This was beyond mere scandal. It was a life-altering reckoning. Yet the indictments also served as a shield for Ava. With formal charges laid against Oliver, Samantha Holden moved swiftly to bolster Ava's separation case, ensuring none of the allegedly laundered funds were connected to Ava or her unborn child. As the news cameras pivoted from sensational gossip to grave legal analysis, Ava felt a swirl of conflicting emotions. Relief that she was extricating herself from Oliver's web of lies, sorrow for the father of her child, and a haunting worry about what kind of future lay ahead for her baby, one with a father potentially behind bars. The day after Oliver's court appearance, Ava woke to a text from an unknown number. "I'm sorry." Oh. She stared at the message for several minutes, waves of sadness rolling through her. His apology was too little too late, like a whisper in a roaring storm. But it was better than silence. Over the next week, Oliver's attempts to contact her became more frequent. Voicemails and texts appeared daily. Ava listened to some tears gathering in her eyes as Oliver's usually confident voice cracked with desperation. He begged for forgiveness, confessed he had been reckless, and claimed to still love her. Yet Ava couldn't forget the nights he'd lied to her face. She couldn't erase the memory of that leaked video or the swirl of scorn she'd endured from the public, and she certainly couldn't ignore the federal charges. Samantha advised her not to respond, at least until the separation process and potential custody arrangements were established. But deep inside, Ava grappled with conflicting emotions. She remembered the Oliver who once left her handwritten love notes every morning. The Oliver who built a children's library wing at the local hospital. Could that man still exist? Or had he always been an illusion? In quiet moments, she would place a hand on her growing belly heart, aching for the child who might never know a father outside prison walls. For all Oliver's sins, Ava couldn't deny that she wished he had chosen a different path, one that might have let them remain a family. Despite the turmoil, Ava discovered she wasn't alone. In the wake of her public statement, letters of support flooded in from women who had faced similar betrayals. Some messages came from single mothers who offered encouragement and practical tips on raising a child independently. The outpouring moved Ava to tears. It gave her a renewed sense of resolve. Philanthropic circles that had once rolled out the red carpet for Oliver now embraced Ava instead. Organizers at the Wilson Children's Hospital invited her to speak at an upcoming fundraiser, praising her authenticity and resilience. Representatives from various women's advocacy groups reached out inviting her to collaborate on initiatives that assisted pregnant women in crisis. Ava felt a flicker of hope. Though her marriage was crumbling, she could funnel her pain into a new purpose, advocating for women caught in relationships eroded by power imbalances and betrayals. Delilah even suggested they start a foundation to provide legal and emotional support to pregnant women facing domestic or financial struggles. Yet with each invitation came the inevitable question, what's next for Oliver's wife? The irony wasn't lost on Ava. She was no longer Oliver's wife in any practical sense, but the world still tied her identity to his. She resolved to carve out her own name and mission, separate from his tarnished legacy. In her quieter moments, though, when the well-wishers and supporters had gone home, she still faced the emptiness left by Oliver's absence. Even with the world rallying around her some nights, she felt more alone than ever. A few weeks into Oliver's legal battles, Ava received a call from his attorney. He wanted to arrange a private meeting. No press, no cameras, just Oliver and Ava in a neutral location. The request startled her. A part of her had begun to imagine a future with no direct contact at all. Despite Samantha's caution, Ava agreed, feeling the child shift in her womb, like a gentle reminder that Oliver was still the father. They chose a small law firm's conference room downtown, one with tinted windows that blocked any paparazzi from capturing the encounter. Oliver arrived first. Dressed in a tailored suit, he looked paler, thinner, and burdened by a stress that had etched lines into his face. When Ava entered, they locked eyes. For a moment, neither spoke. The tension was so thick she could barely breathe. Finally, he broke the silence. I know I've lost your trust, and maybe I'll never regain it. But I wanted to see you to ask about the baby. His voice was hushed, almost reverent. Ava swallowed, placing a protective hand on her belly. The baby's fine, healthy. she said, her voice hoarse. "I'm due in a few months." Oliver exhaled a shaky breath, a mixture of relief and sorrow. "I made an unforgivable mistake. And now I'm paying for it in ways I never imagined. But if there's any chance at all, I want to be there when our child is born." A swirl of conflicting emotions welled in Ava. She wanted to protect herself, to keep him at arm's length. Yet she couldn't deny the child's need to know its father, assuming he wasn't behind bars. I can't promise anything right now," she replied cautiously. Oliver nodded, understanding that words wouldn't erase the hurt he'd caused. The meeting ended quietly with more questions than answers. As Ava left, she wondered if there was any glimmer of reconciliation, or if it was simply too late for that. Time moved forward, even if Ava felt stuck in emotional quicksand. Weeks turned into months, and her pregnancy edged into its final trimester. Her belly swelled, making everyday tasks more cumbersome, but also filling her with a fierce, protective love for the child growing inside. Oliver's legal battles took center stage in national media. Each court date brought fresh revelations of financial misconduct, fraudulent tax filings, shady shell companies, and possible insider trading. Courtroom sketches of Oliver flooded the news, capturing his anxious eyes and trembling posture. Still, he occasionally sent Ava messages, updates on his case lamentations about losing major assets, even an ultrasound-themed baby blanket he had purchased before the scandal blew up. Ava read and received these gestures with guarded compassion. She was no longer naive enough to believe they fixed anything, but she could see the desperation in his attempts. Meanwhile, Ava's philanthropic work blossomed. She collaborated with Liz White to hold a charity drive for underprivileged pregnant women, collecting baby supplies, prenatal vitamins, and funds for maternal care. The event drew significant media coverage, with many praising Ava for turning personal tragedy into positive impact. Through it all, she grappled with her upcoming childbirth, uncertain whether Oliver would or should be there. The clock was ticking toward a new life entering the world, and she had yet to reconcile the role Oliver would play. As each day passed, the question burned brighter. Could a man so consumed by lies and greed ever become a loving father? Ava's labor came unexpectedly one evening well before her due date. She had been at Delilah's brownstone, finalizing details for another charitable event, when a sharp pain sliced through her. Gasping, she doubled over, her heart pounding in sudden alarm. Delilah rushed her to the nearest hospital, the swirl of city lights casting an eerie glow against the anxious hush of the car ride. By the time they arrived, Ava's contractions had intensified, leaving her breathless and trembling. Nurses whisked her into a maternity suite, hooking her up to monitors. Panicked Delilah contacted Samantha Holden, who in turn thought to call Oliver's attorney. Within an hour, Oliver appeared at the hospital, looking frantic and disheveled. The medical staff recognized his face from the scandalous headlines, but remained professional. Ava, though startled to see him, was too overwhelmed by pun to protest. Time blurred in a dizzying swirl of contractions, medical jargon, and shouted encouragement. Ava was gripped by a primal blend of fear and determination, tears leaking from the corners of her eyes. Oliver hovered by her side, tentatively offering a hand. In her pain, she grasped it instinctively. Hours later, after what felt like an eternity, Ava heard the baby's first cry. Relief and awe collided in her chest. The nurse carefully placed a tiny, wriggling infant in Ava's arms. She sobbed, pressing kisses to the baby's delicate forehead. Through tear-blurred vision, she saw Oliver standing nearby, eyes shining with raw emotion. In that instant, their entire scandalous past receded, eclipsed by the fragile miracle of new life. Yet the question lingered. Would this fleeting moment of unity carve a lasting path forward for them? Or would the shadows of betrayal and legal peril snuff it out? Back at the hospital, Ava watched as Oliver gently rocked Amelia, his face softened with awe. For a moment, he looked like the man she once loved before Leeson scandal. He whispered stories to Amelia, promising to change to be present. Ava remained guarded. "This doesn't undo everything," she said quietly. "I know," Oliver replied, eyes on their daughter, "but I want to earn your trust back for her." Later, as discharge papers were signed, Oliver asked if he could come home with them. Ava paused, then shook her head. "Not yet. Amelia and I need time." He nodded visibly, crushed but respectful. "Thank you for letting me be here." As she cradled Amelia and stepped into the waiting car, Ava felt both the weight of the past and the hope of a future. Trust was fragile, but for her daughter's sake, she was willing to leave the door cracked just enough. In the weeks after Amelia's birth, Ava embraced motherhood in quiet refuge, away from media glare. Oliver, facing trial, visited often gentle with Amelia, sincere in his efforts. Ava remained cautious, but let him in a little at a time. Then came his sentencing. Found guilty of tax evasion and securities fraud, Oliver received 5 years in federal prison. Outside the courthouse, tears slipped down his face as he told Ava, "I'll serve my time. I hope there's still a chance for Amelia, and maybe for us." Ava, holding Amelia close, replied softly, "We'll see. One day at a time." As Oliver was led away, Ava stood beneath the Chicago sky, her daughter nestled in her arms. The fairy tale had crumbled, but something more honest remained, a second chance. Not for romance, but for truth, for healing, and for a life finally free of secrets. She was ready to build that future, one step at a time. Ava Carmichael's life changed the moment the leaked footage of her husband's affair hit the internet. But it was the power of her own voice at that pivotal press conference that truly redefined her destiny. While Oliver's empire crumbled under the weight of his transgressions and legal battles, Ava emerged stronger, driven by her love for her newborn daughter and a determination to carve out a future rooted in truth. Ultimately, hers is a story of resilience, triumphing over betrayal of motherhood, guiding the path to self-discovery. Ava transformed from a silent figure overshadowed by her husband's fortune into a public advocate for women facing emotional, financial, and marital turmoil. Though Oliver's journey led him to a prison cell, Ava found the courage to stand on her own, proving that even the darkest revelations can pave the way for newfound purpose. If you found meaning or inspiration in Ava's journey, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support empowers us to uncover more stories that shine a light on the power of truth and resilience. Together, let's continue inspiring and uplifting one another, one extraordinary tale at a time.